What is going on, FPF world?
You might say that you fixed that headset.
I fixed that headset.
In time.
Hey, I've never heard that one before.
I bet. My name's George Michael, so deal with it.
That is Jim Colethris to my right, and making us look good behind the scenes. Eagle at Master Control.
We have a new backdrop this week. It's beautiful.
Oh, again?
Yes,
yeah?
we do.
Hey.
Yes. It's like a hybrid between the wood panel and a backdrop of Montreal. It's quite lovely.
So wood panel of Montreal?
The wood panel of Montreal is what it is now known for.
The next step in this is that we get a nice little screen to see what you're seeing. Would be pretty cool.
It's on its way.
It's on its way. All right. We'll get there when we get there. Before that, FPF talk. Mid-season is here.
Yeah, it's
We're
the
5
fun
weeks
one.
in, and we're gonna do things a bit differently this week. No recaps, as we will head straight into Eagle Thinks for our mid-season.
I gotta start the show?
You are
You have to
starting
start
the
the
show,
not
man.
And as I mentioned, it would be a fun one, too. I mentioned last week it would be a fun one, so I really went and did the research.
GM
made me do research. For he was like, can you look this up for me? I'm like, why? He's like, I can't tell you.
Well, you're about to
I
find
also
out.
like that we leverage Eagle to do all our dirty work, and even in this instance where I need, he doesn't need to know what it is, I still have him do the
Hey,
shitty
man.
work.
You got him under lock, clearly. As we get right into things here, Eagle, are you ready for the
Yes,
question?
sir. I am definitely ready.
All right, so here's what we got. So, since spring 2009, how many teams finishing atop their respective conference at midseason,
So Conference A, Conference B, top team.
ended up making the finals in that season?
Conference head or division?
Yes.
So that's 8 seasons and 2 conference. So out of a possible 16, how many who were at the top of their conference at the midpoint in the season actually made the finals?
Made the final.
The finals.
So, Eagle's going to think of that. And,
So the teams that were the top dogs, did they stay the top dogs?
Yeah, got it.
Yeah. So, quick recap here.
I got a
How it
number.
works is that we ask Eagle a question. Jim and I bet, if you will, on what we believe Eagle's answer is, not what the actual answer is, but we will get to the actual
It's
answer.
really just a vehicle for what we want to talk about.
Essentially, yeah. So, Eagle's got his answer here. Jim, just throw it out, man. What do you got? What do you think Eagle's got?
Give me 4 and above.
Oh, man, that's like right around where I want it to.
There you go.
You know what? Nah, I'm gonna go to 5, and that's it for me. You're stopping too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 5 and above.
5 and above, I got it. If it's 4 and below, it is GM's win. What do we got here, Eagle?
Uno, dos, tres.
Wow. All right. Yeah. So we're pretty close here.
So it's actually higher than you think, but your number is right for something else. So
Interesting.
of the 16 teams who are at the top of their conferences at the midway point, 7 out of 16 made the finals.
Wow.
But-
I did not expect that.
But only 3 became eventual champions.
I didn't even think it was going to be that high.
So-
that's quite incredible, actually.
So, for instance, I have the list here. So, just to gloss over it, there's a lot of familiar names here, top leaders through the mid-season point, Triple Sixers, Chaos, Lobster Dinner from way back when, FOTC, and then the Darren Basmajan fan club. That's up there.
Are they still a fan club, by the way?
Can you opt out of Darren Basmajan?
I don't
He's
know.
a lifestyle.
We
He's
should
not
we should ask Arto.
yeah. So the only teams that were atop their conference that became eventual champions, Brocasian, 6 Fast Guys plus Ryans,
Ayo.
No Fly Zone.
yeah. No, I mean that's
It's
pretty. It's pretty surprising, honestly, when you think about it. I don't know. It's
well, it shows that there's that much more parity than we think. So even when the perceived top dogs are doing really really well, it's not a guarantee that they're even going to
Yeah.
make finals, let alone win.
Yeah, and I definitely think it deserves mentioning. Just, I mean, we know it, but going back and actually looking, listen, 09, the bottom tier, if you will, was Div C. That's where it stopped.
Yep.
So since 09, we've gone from just C to you got D, then we added E, and now we're splitting D.
And 09 is the actual only instance where both conference leaders made the final. So it was kind of accepted from the beginning who would make the finals.
Right.
Triple Sixers and Chaos.
I think within 1 week we knew who was going to win Division C back then. Now
That's
it's
right.
now it's a toss.
That was lockdowns for a season.
Oh my
right?
god, that was terrible.
What'd you do? 0-10, right?
That was 1-9.
1-9.
Les Affleurs.
Monstars inaugural season at
Monstars
0-10.
went there
That's my
too.
mistake.
Is that so?
Yeah, Triple Sixers year of dominance. That was a fun one.
So that is your FPF history minute of the week.
I could talk about this. I could keep talking about this, but I know that you're not going to.
Listen, we will focus more on this season, the season at hand. So we're not going to go full-on betting style here because the commission probably wouldn't like that. But what we'll do is go very simply, give a percentage.
Chapman makes up like
That's okay.
Made up spreads.
We're doing over/under. We've assigned each team a percentage, if you will, of making the finals.
How likely we think it'll be to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Well, listen, I kind of gave like stock wins, if you will, going based off of how many wins they've got so far to get to 100% for each conference. And it's pretty simple. Listen, we got a minute and a half per team to discuss whether we believe it should be over or under and why. So we will get right to it. GM, Backyard Bullies, what do you got? Sorry, well, it's 30.5% is what they got to make the finals.
30.5%. It's got to be right on par there, if not a little bit lower. I'm guessing that it's going to be evenly distributed between Backyard Bullies and the commission.
That is correct.
I also know that because I read the script.
Hey, putting in work this week.
I really like what Backyard Bullies have had to offer so far this season. We mentioned that the offense isn't quite as high flying as it used to be, but that's not necessary. At this point, they're 5-0. Rich Humes is doing well. He has that experience in Division B as well, so it seems a little bit easier to make magic happen in C. And hey, winning's winning at this point, right?
Yeah, I'm going to go over. I'm going to say that I'm going to give them a higher percentage here. I think that they are arguably the best roster, right alongside the commissions. I mean, we've named them before, but guys like Rich Humes, Vinny Golano, Steve Sanner, Corey Walwaski, really good as a snapper. Listen, I think that them and the commission, honestly, in terms of head-to-head, that's where I see this going. I would give the commission the slight edge just because of the way that Zachary Albert-Skill has been rushing. Amazing rushing this week against the Blue Chips quarterback, Jordan Mitchell. Listen, between that and granted, I think the commission have proven week in and week out they can actually put up big points. Backyard Bullies aren't exactly there yet. So I think that it's higher, but I'm going to go a bit higher for the commission for me here. So what do you got for the commission?
Yeah, I do agree as well that the commission are definitely the deeper roster of these two teams. You mentioned the rush. I think that also, despite Backyard Bullies, who have that sort of chemistry a little bit better, considering how much closer this group is, the talent for the commission is just like undeniably there at this point. They're just doing phenomenally, and they're well built.
Yeah.
So I would give an over of 30% on the commission. I think that at this point, they're my favorites to make the finals of Conference A, but it will be close.
Yeah, no, to be honest, I would push it up to over 40, honestly. This team, you mentioned it, they are stacked. And they've proven already so far that they can take on some tough teams. Speaking of Blue Chips, for example, they have to be, in my opinion, the favorites heading in with Backyard Bullies, a very, very close second. As we move right along then to the next team here, Junkyard Dogs, I got them at 15%.
I'd say even that could be a little bit higher, but then that means that the teams below are just like
0.001.
Not even that low, but it's just a much more stacked deck for them. We've talked about the Junkyard Dogs making the necessary additions, how Jordan Rossi seems to be contributing on offense, Jason Rossi just evenly distributing the ball and looking more and more comfortable, as well as having that influence of Karmpuliche on this team.
Yeah, I'm going to go the opposite, to be honest. I'm going to go under. I think it's closer to maybe 10. Listen, if we had done this a week ago, I would have been all in with you. It looked like they were clicking, especially with Carmen Puliche along with Jason Rossi, as we mentioned. This week, though, it just kind of crumbled in terms of their ability to move the ball downfield, them and Carmine, as the loss to Jägerbaum. Now listen, I'm not saying it's not panic mode. It's not completely over for them. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I am a bit disappointed that at this point in the season, we're still not seeing Marc-André Lapointe be targeted very much. That is a top talent in this league. You have to, I think, find a way to get him the ball.
But is that a representation more of Junkyard Dog's struggles, or Jägerbaum just stepping up and executing far better?
Well, I mean, it's possible, right? And I think we'll figure that out a bit further along as the season gets along. As honestly, I still don't have a clear idea of Jägerbaum. We'll get them in a second. But I think what really brings it over the top is the fact that at this point in the season, they're really only game against a clear-cut competitor, which was the Commission. It was a pretty decent loss, I'd say, and that's not what you want to see from teams you expect to go on and compete for championships. Next year, No Name, 5%.
I don't know. Give me that. I'd say right on par right now. 5% would be right on par for the No Name crew. We've seen improvements. We've seen good things happen for No Name. It just needs to hurry up at this point. They're likely going to make the playoffs, and that's where it's going to come time to executing. We see them struggling against mid-tier teams and doing well against mid-tier teams. Their matchups are not going to be against those mid-tier teams in the playoffs, and that's why I'm not sold at higher than 5%.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point there. I'm going to say under, but not by a lot. Like this isn't a 0.0 whatever chance. It's not home for the Hollanders over here. I'm just not sure that they have the pieces to really compete. I guess round after round in the playoffs. They have, some talent is there, especially with Jonathan Grizzly. And honestly, you can never, doubt Rob White. He's always like the, dependable guy.
Rob White is the utility player.
Yeah. No, listen, he's always there, very dependable guy on both sides of the ball. Honestly, he makes plays. I'm just not sold that it's enough. I think it comes
down to that the depth of No Name, or the lack of depth of No Name, will end badly for them when they don't have those favorable matchups. Because there are instances where No Name perform very well against their opponents, but if they don't have the right matchup, it's just going to be game over.
Yeah. Next over here, Blue Chips at 2 and 3, also at 5%.
I'm going to drop their percentage as well. I'm convinced of Blue Chips' talent, absolutely, but at this point, the sort of run first, get open, chuck a deep offense will be negated by a strong rusher and a good defense. So I don't see them as being a deep playoff team. They weren't a deep playoff team in 4B either. They were a one-and-done team. So I'm not convinced at this point, considering the dynamics of this team are still one-dimensional.
Yeah, no, listen, that's a good point. I'm going to go the opposite, though. Just because, yes, granted, they've lost 3 in a row. It should be mentioned that all of those losses were by 8 points, if I did that math properly.
And arriving late.
Yeah, right. So I mean, like this,
and
they're there. They're there. I mean, and
the defense is astronomical for this division. I think that Blue Chips have probably one of the strongest defenses in this division, and that will definitely help with those potential offensive one-dimensional struggles, if they happen.
I think it should be mentioned that, listen, 2 of their losses so far have come against the Commission and Backyard Bullies. They played Backyard Bullies tight. I think it was 29-26, and the Commission was a close game right up until the end. So that to me is a positive sign. It shows that they can go kind of score for score, if you will. Obviously, the tough thing is that, as you mentioned, you get a team that has an amazing rusher. Not just that, but flat defenders who can come up and make the tackle when the QB does get past the rusher. I think they're finished. The way I see it going down, honestly, is if they get like maybe a middle seed, and you see a top seed like the Commission and or Backyard Bullies getting upset round 1, I like the Blue Chips going all the way in that sense. Next up here, Jägerbaum, also 5%, 2 and 3.
This is the team where I would say I would increase their percentage and likelihood. The road to get there is going to be really, really difficult. They have probably the toughest schedule in C at this point, but I mean, if there's a quarterback in a team, the ensemble that can do it, like Simon Deschênes is the one to lead this team. I think that they're a true to form dark horse in this division. They don't even have a winning record, which is perfect. They will need to make playoffs, but like the teams they face all throughout the season, they're going to be battle tested, and they can sneak in and do some damage.
Yeah, I think what helps is if it's 9 teams per conference, it's got to be top 8, right, that makes playoffs. So I mean, they're pretty much, I think, honestly, just about set to get in. They'll be able to win a couple of those last 5 games that they've got. To me, it's right on par. It's legit. You're just taking a chance on a complete outsider. Listen, they've got a big loss to the Commission in week 1. That to me is a worrisome sign. Then they come back, they get a close loss versus Backyard Bullies. That's a positive sign. Then they come back and they get absolutely demolished by your Royals, back to being worrisome. And now here they have a win over Junkyard Dogs, which is reassuring. It's completely inconsistent.
I feel like the week 1 and week 3 losses have that sort of asterisk to them, with Simon Shine being injured in the Royals game, and just week 1 being week 1.
I mean, I guess that's where, I understand that argument. But I just want to see a bit more consistency, I guess, before giving them a bit more credit in terms of what they've done this season. Okay. That's where I've got Jaegerbaum here. Show me your TDs, 5% at 2 and 3.
Right now, I like what I've seen in the change of Show Me Your TDs. I was talking on the sidelines with Mike Adana during their most recent game, and I don't want to say it worked out ideally for them, but in an instance where your captain quarterback goes down with a shoulder injury and is unable to play out the rest of the season, having Jesse GP go into the play quarterback has just been what this team needed right now. The core is familiar with him. He evenly distributes the ball. Granted, it's a totally different offense from what Mike calls, and Jesse's been able to, thus far in the one game he's played, make the most of his receivers.
Yeah, Jesse Dupuis, Division 3 was it last season, right?
Division 3, 8 boys, 1 cup.
Right.
And he also played on Alpha Team.
Right. So, he works some magic from last season. I mean, it was a bit of a tough start, but he kind of pulled it together at the end, which is a very positive sign for the Show Me Your TDs team. I think that they are very underrated at this point. I'd be very careful. I am going much higher than just 5%.
So are they underrated because of the change, or are they underrated in general?
I think in general, but especially with the change, I mean, not too many. I don't think many people know Jesse Dupuis. I mean, we followed him, from covering Division 3 last season. But a very solid quarterback, and I'm going to give them credit. I'm going to give him some time to figure out the pieces that he has here to see what works best in terms of his own offense, as opposed to what Mike Adana like to call. This is a good roster. I think this is a good roster. This is a good quarterback. I definitely think that they have a much higher chance than just 5%, especially if Jesse plays the rest of this season like he did to finish out last season in the winter. Going deep, 1 and 4, 3%.
If that. Similar sort of instance where I like the matchups that Going Deep have at times, but they're well under the Division C cap. So on paper, the caliber of team isn't quite there compared to the others, and there will be instances where they just don't match up well, and they're not going to be able to come back from that. So I would put it at less than 3.
Yeah, for me it's a lot less.
I mean, we talked about Maxime Chateauneuf, Pat Riot, Charles Bayard-Géant, and Paiement, but there's a sharp drop off after that.
Yeah, for me the thing is, look, they had a chance to prove that they belong in the conversation to be considered as a dark horse when they had games versus the Commission and Backyard Bullies. The fact that those were pretty lopsided gives me really zero reason as to why I should think that they'll get it fixed in time for the end of the season. This is it. This is their team. It's not like Show Me Your TDs where they're bringing a new QB, where they're trying something different, whatever the case may be. Players missing in terms of key guys magically showing up towards the end of the season. This is what their team has. This is what we are to expect from them, and I think that given also a very tough remaining schedule that they've got in Conference A,
so the likelihood of them even making playoffs,
it's very low. And I mean, it's only helped by the fact that we are absolutely garbage. But honestly, I think we play them actually this season. So if they finish, if they go 1-9, we go 1-9, we get the one over them. That's it. They're out of the playoffs.
Battle of the basement dwellers.
Speaking of which, home for the Andes, I got us at 1%.
Yeah. 1% is enough of a chance.
You are the 1%.
We definitely are.
It's going to
not that 1%.
It's going to come down to those last few matches, but maybe hope that the first round matchup against whoever the top seed is a favorable one.
Yeah, there are no favorable matchups.
Quarterback switch?
Definitely not. No.
And I mentioned
to who? Hold on. To who? Who would go?
anyone.
No, no, really not.
No, at this point, like this is the team that was put forward, and I mentioned is that like, I don't dislike this team. I just think it's a bad team for Simon to succeed with.
Yeah,
it's not the type
quarterback switch.
Look, having being on this team and playing for all but one game so far, it's a bunch of things that have been going wrong. The most recently, which I got to call Peace out for like legit 6 bad snaps, which definitely don't help. Miscommunication between Simons and his receivers. I'm going to say it's right on par 1%, and I think the only thing that really gives this team a sliver of hope is the fact that we will be getting Juwan Edgell back starting this week.
Hey!
So he should be playing the last 5 games in time to make playoffs if this team does become
FPF Junior's finest.
Is he a
There you go.
quarterback?
Man, the Simon Dash to hate. It's rough. It's rough out here.
But you asked that, but the return of like Juwan is also a player that is comfortable catching Simon's passes and that Simon's comfortable throwing.
Yeah, yeah.
So where I mentioned that this team is badly sort of put together for Simon because he tends to rely on those chemistry routes rather than just like breakneck speed and athletes, this will help.
Yeah. So 1%. That's what it is. Let's go, boys. As we move along to Conference B, at the top here, Royals 5-0 at 33%. If we're being objective here, I'm boosting this.
Yeah,
much
I'd love to
higher.
lie and say no, but I think
That's-
that 33% could.
Honestly, if I'm being completely honest, I think it's closer to about 50.
And I think that this all comes down to the fact that like Corey Johnson didn't have a quarterback rating.
That definitely helped. He's been playing lights out.
And which is fair, which you mentioned that like up until this point, Corey Johnson has never played this strong ever.
Yeah, again, I mean, I still don't understand. I'm still seeing those stats like the 33 touchdowns, 69 TDs. I'm like, where is this? This is not that Corey Johnson at all. He is zipping the ball in there. Excuse me. Listen, this team, you guys objectively, I think, have the best receiving core. And honestly, that even includes you in there. I went and checked. All of you guys have at least 3 TDs, if not more, which is a very good sign because, you know, even if you want to say, all right, we'll leave GM unopened, well, you know, you're going to make some plays out here. You know what I mean?
I make a career off of not being covered.
It's fantastic, right?
So defensively, though, so also from an objective point, like defensively, though, the Royals don't have many stops. I think there's been 3 interceptions all season and 2 came last week.
Yeah.
At this point right now, the defense hasn't sort of been able to keep up with the Royals offense.
Granted.
And it's just been helpful that the Royals offense can
Granted,
score
and
well.
I'm going to you can keep your modesty here for a second because you guys allowed no more than 3 TDs since week 1, and Chris Millar is on a tear here with 8 sacks so far. Listen, defense is playing not amazingly, but is playing very well. Offense is absolutely insane. What more, what can you say on this at this point? You've already taken down some very good teams. One of these being Bearskins at 4-1, 19.5% chance to make the finals.
I'd increase that as well. I'm going to go to this well until we see the Bearskins again, because right now this core, the Bearskins core against the Royals core, Bearskins have won 2-1. So the fact that Bearskins were missing 2 players at this point really puts an asterisk on that, and I think that they are the closest competition for Royals in Conference B because they're the strongest built team.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. I'm gonna lower it a little bit because I think that the next team that we're gonna talk about is your true competition here. You bring up some good points. I'm just not completely sold just yet. We talked about Neil Ensign last week, not exactly playing up to his standards in terms of previous seasons. Granted, as we mentioned, Sasha Papic hasn't been there week in and week out, only 2 games played so far. But even with him, I think that it's a good team, especially, him and obviously Marco Bertoldi. I'm just not sure that it is as good all around, if you will, in terms of, as compared to you guys and the next team they're going to talk about. Good team. I don't know if we can put them in the great echelon just yet, as that next team we're talking about is Impeccable D at 4-1, also 19.5%.
I like this Impeccable D as the defense is. Like, this is the team that kept up closest to Royals, managed to create turnovers. The defense works really well together. They have that great chemistry. Jeff Rosenblatt's been getting better and better. Just an absolute underrated team in Conference B, and we talk about them a lot. So I think that just goes to show how underrated I think they are.
Yeah, I mean, as I really just said, this to me, I think this is your really big competition to win this conference. In my opinion, the second best roster behind you guys. Look, they don't have a Papich. I mean, you can't really compare in terms of what he can do on the field, but they have those 3 or 4 solid guys.
The average skill of this team is better than the average skill of any other team.
Yeah,
there's no weak link.
I think that's very fair to say. Between the Aridis, Kevin Bustani, Daniel Farag, we talked about too. Look, I played essentially Impeccable D Light a couple weeks ago in Division D, and I think a very underrated thing about this team is that defensively they just play as a unit. Like they know what defense they're going to call. They know how to play it. They played very well, and it's so tough to just pick on one guy on this defense because there's always help over the top. They communicate everything from them top to bottom.
They have Marty Friedman at rush, and they have the ability to put in to put in Ryan Aridi when things go awry for Friedman. So that should just tell you like the depth that this defense has and how interchangeable these pieces are.
Absolutely. Smash Bros 3-2 at 15%.
I'd increase the Smash Bros percentage as well, and then I guess there's going to be a drop off after that because math doesn't allow it otherwise. I think that Smash Bros are a great on paper roster, but we haven't seen them really hit their full potential yet. They had quarterback inconsistencies to start the season. J Flo didn't show up for the early games. Now we're going to start hearing the Smash Bros name a little bit more as they start to get more comfortable with their current roster. We're going to see these names show up again and again. I like it. I like this team.
I'm going the opposite. I am not sold. I'm going a lot lower. Look, I want to like this team. I want, as you mentioned, this team on paper is fantastic. But Jonah Cohen in the past 2 weeks, for whatever reason, it hasn't worked out. And I mean, it's I don't know. I can't give you an exact reason why. Averaging 19 points per game in those 2 games. As Mokan here wants to step in here for a second.
What's going on, gentlemen? By the way, GM, you look like a character from Jersey Shore with that nice basketball top you're wearing. Anyway,
Space Jam?
Yeah, Space Jam, though.
Everybody get up. It's time to slime now.
Anyway,
you're character from Jersey Shore.
I've scored
No. You were welcome on this show before.
I'm just saying.
Go for it, Mo.
If you look in the background, you look like the situation right now. We got a situation now. Anyway,
does he mean that?
I am.
Smash
Bros. Smash Bros. Look, I've score capped 3 games of late, and you're right. Jonah Cohen does not look like the dominant quarterback that he was a couple of spring seasons ago, where he was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I feel like he's lost his confidence in the red zone, and it feels like he's stagnating. The creativity isn't there. He's rushing his throws. You can sort of see the body language of the team as a whole losing, not confidence, but not as it once was. So I think for them, they got to correct their red zone. If they
so what do you suggest in this instance?
Well, I think, you know what, guys, for where they are right now in this season, I wouldn't discount them yet. But I think for them as a whole, if they can get that red zone corrected, I think they could be a lot tougher going to the second half.
Yeah, so but that's the question. I think the question will be whether they can, if they do, because there's no real magic switch to just getting your red zone issues fixed. I mean, unless it's in terms of play calling that's not working out for them. But
you got Lindor, you got Vlad Pearce, you got Petrovic,
Jonathan Garfinkel. Joseph Cano also makes plays like this. The talent is there.
That's why I said, like, on paper, this roster should be better than
so.
But against Impeccable D, they just looked outclassed. They were outclassed, outplayed, outmanned, you name it. And you can sort of see, and even not going to name names, but even talking to some of the guys, I go, guys, player A, you're open. He goes, yeah, I know, but we need to have our quarterback have that confidence to throw that ball to him.
Yeah, that's not what you want to be seeing from a team. Thank you, Mokan.
Yeah, thank you.
Trying to make a playoff run here.
The bulk of that.
Yeah, as we move right along to friends in low places at 2 and 3, giving them 5% here, chance to make the finals.
I guess, yeah, maybe even just a little bit more than that, but it's close to that. This team at a full roster with Kevin Smuda is still well under the Division C cap as well. They're one of the other teams that had a lot of space and didn't really utilize it. And Kevin Smuda hasn't been there. Alex Holowak has been able to help out for this team, but we most recently played Friends in Low Places, and that was a roster that just barely passed Division D2. So right away, when you're in a deep division like this, this, you're not going to be successful if you have these sort of struggles unless your players are making plays.
Yeah, I don't want to rain on the parade here. I'm going lower, a lot lower. Credit to them, again, as we always do, for making the jump, for trying out here. The good is that they've won 2 out of their first 5, which honestly is good for this roster in terms of what they're going up against. And that, they actually essentially control their own playoff destiny, right? If they keep winning, they'll be good. The bad is that the offense has been absolutely terrible so far, and they're coming off a game versus a clear-cut contender in you guys where they were, it seems to me, very outmatched, and that won't cut it when playoffs come around. I'm going lower. Next here, Nuggets 2-3, 5%.
5% is about right. We've discussed they have the talent there. William Ladouceur, Sam Phaneuf. This team has the athletes and the football skill to succeed in this division, but the fact that they sort of go to the well too often, they run the same plays. When it works for them, it works. When they don't, when it doesn't, they're lost. So this team is very inconsistent. 5% is about all that I'd give them, but I would still call them a potential contender.
Yeah, for me, I'm going a bit lower just because I think I give you guys so much of the share. But they've been consistent all season long, and as you mentioned, and for me, honestly, it seems like it's a team where they could make the playoffs and surprise someone round 1 and actually make a run, or they could not make the playoffs at all.
Yep.
That's how big the variance is here. The thing that I'm really kind of disappointed in is that most recently only 12 points scored in the past 2 games. Horrible performances versus some clear playoff favorites in impeccable D and Bearskins. I don't think it leaves very much hope for them to actually make the playoffs, unless they just magically turn around again next week and they start playing great ball. I think that they need to get Samuel Phaneuf to go absolute ham. They need to get Raphaël Ducalapan more involved. And I think that if they get magically Jamal Henry to win 4 out of the last 5, then maybe.
Yes,
yeah,
fair.
Otherwise, I have a really tough time seeing it happen as we move right along to Red Wave at 1-4, giving them 1%.
Yep. I've been perpetually disappointed with Red Wave. It's not too late to turn things around, but it's going to be an uphill battle at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they are.
I feel like I've beaten this horse a little bit.
No, I know. I mean, so that's why I'm gonna give them a bit of credit here. I will give them props for putting up 40 this week on MVE. It's honestly what you want to see in terms of how you want to see this team win if they want to win consistently. 6 TDs shared among their top 3 go-to guys: Travis Moses, Jordan Moses, and Jeremy Anderson, which is solid. The question is it a 1 week thing or is this their turnaround point? I don't know. I can't say. They will need that kind of performance week in and week out to both make the playoffs and then make noise in the playoffs. 1% I think is about right. Texas Bearmans 1-4%.
This team is just unable to close out games, man. I was watching their most recent game, and they had scored, and they basically had to go for 2 for the win. And Mike Roy was buying time in the backfield and just trying to beat the rusher. I don't know if he fell or slipped, and as he was trying to get rid of the ball, he was considered down by concession, which, by the way, he threw up to Khalil Kerr, and Khalil Kerr caught just in the back of the end zone in a magical play, but just unable to make that play to secure the win, and that seems like it's been the case for this Texas Bearmans team. They're very, very good. They just can't finish games when they need to.
Yeah, it's just so frustrating me because I think we were kind of supporting Texas Bearmans all the way through, giving them a bunch of credit, and it just seems like week after week, my confidence in them is going slowly dwindling. I think 1% is very fair. Look, 0-3 in the last 3 weeks, and they've scored 34, 20, and 18 points. And not surprisingly, Khalil Kerr and Kwesi Gordon-Mall, they've gone from combining for 13 catches for 184 yards and 3 TDs to 8 for 32 yards and 2 TDs to most recently 5 for 30 and 0 TDs. You have to get your playmakers the ball. They need to make plays for you, and that's it. That's how far this team will go.
And that's how we agreed that this team was built as well.
Exactly. So it's either teams are have just figured out how to contain them, or Mike Roy is just not doing his duty in terms of I'm not necessarily forcing the ball to them, but come on, these guys are open. Give me a break. They're way too fast to not be open. That's it. That's where their chances are right on. Is those two making plays for them. I think 1% is very on point. The last one here, MVE 1-4, also 1%.
If that. MVE's opportunity was this cut past week against Red Wave. They lost that game. I think that's going to be the story of the season for them. Unfortunately, a consistent amount of teams have put up a lot of points on them, so their plus minus right now is really rough. Texas Bearmans aren't going to stay a 1-win team, and at this point, just out of odds, they're going to be the ones on the outside looking in.
Yeah, I have them lower as well. Last week aside, we've mentioned that the offense has been very anemic, and I think that unlike some other teams, they don't get to say that it's because of guys missing or because of issues in terms of chemistry. Again, this is a core that's been around for a while. Quarterback knows his receivers and vice versa. I went and checked. All but 2 of their guys have 5 games played, which is honestly pretty solid. Those 2 being Beolante, and 4 games played. Who's never been much of an offensive player.
And Vincent Lozon.
Vincent Lozon has 3 games played. Granted, in those 3 games, one of which was last week when they put up 34 against Red Wave. But they're also the first 2 where they only put up 14 points versus No Name and Smash Bros. They would need a miraculous turnaround. And against a remaining schedule that includes Bearskins, Texas Bearmans, Nuggets going deep in Impeccable D, I do not see it happening. Realistically, they win maybe 1 of those games, I think.
Yeah, I think that, and these teams specifically are all playoff contenders, and they're going to look to cannibalize MV.
Yeah, it's tough to say. I mean, I want to see them do good, but it just hasn't worked out for whatever reason. Hopefully for them, this 34 points that they just put up will be a turnaround point for them, but I will not say that it is a guarantee. That's it for Eagle Thinks this week as we move right along to...
Eagle Thinks was the whole show.
It was a whole show. Well worth it, though, I think. Previews here, kind of rapid fire. First one up here, Friends in Low Places versus Texas Bearmans. I think the key matchup here will be Kwesi Gordon Mall and Khalil Kerr, as well as Trey Grant, who's kind of come along, taking on that Friends in Low Places secondary. 5 INTs between Danny Demore and Alex Holowak. Who you got?
I have Texas Bearmans for this. Like, on paper right now, I can't discount them. I think that potentially, like, even if Texas Bearmans ran just like hooks all game, they have the players who can break tackles. They have that speed, and they can score easier than the Friends in Low Places offense will score on them. So I think if they can just they can hold on to the ball and just outlast them at this point.
For whatever reason, I think that they won't because of how terribly they've been playing the last weeks. I totally see Mike Roy taking his chances deep. I think this is the one week where you want to keep that to a minimum. Danny Demore is so underrated. Guys always take their chance on Danny Demore, and he always shows up.
That's fair, and that's why I mentioned that sort of cutting it up short is the way to go against Friends in Low Places, but that doesn't seem to be the sort of MO of Texas Bearmans.
Right.
And if Mike Roy starts airing it out, it's going to be bad news.
That's it. I mean, the picks are going to come, and that's what I see being the difference here. If Danny Demore can make a few plays offensively. So give me Friends in Low Places by a point or 2. Blue Chips versus Home for the Hollandais. The key matchup will be Jordan Mitchell, the quarterback, versus me, the rusher. I'm not looking forward to this.
You're definitely not looking forward to it, but that's probably the best case scenario at rusher for Home for the Hollandaise at this point.
Yeah,
you're gonna limit Mitchell's sort of rolling out.
Try to.
This is a similar sort of contain rushing that I've seen you do in the past as well on Still Teamless. So I have a vote of confidence for you, but still think that Blue Chips are going to win.
Justin has to put the defense on his back, though.
Yeah, that's pretty fair to say. We'll leave it at that. The last one here, Impeccable D versus the Commission. The key matchup will be Sean Avram versus Impeccable D's Impeccable D.
So you know what? I still think that the Commission are probably the best team in Conference A, or at least close to it, and they're going to go far. But give me Impeccable D on the upset win this week.
Okay.
Yeah.
You just got a gut feeling or what?
Yeah, I do.
All right, that's fair enough. I think the Commission take it. I think that as long as Sean Avram doesn't throw a dumb INT like he did this past week, he knows what I'm talking about.
Or a safety.
Or take a safety.
Yeah.
It seemed like he's good for maybe 1 or 2 of these a season. I don't think it's going to happen this week. I think that the Commission find a way to pull it off, but I think it's going to be a very close battle all the way down really to the last drive. Give me the Commission here by a convert. That will do it for us here. Thanks for tuning in. GM, your final thoughts?
If you have an 8 o'clock game at Papineau, it's just the worst. If you're on field 3, just having that sun in your eye, like you're almost playing outdoors at that point, and it's just
it's funny you mentioned it. I think week 1, Alex Pilon, we were playing on that field. He legit put on shades for a drive. It didn't last long because one cut, the shades came right off, but he started running. But yeah, I feel you on that. I'm just gonna say very quickly, it's an obvious thing, but give your refs a bit more credit. I had to step in earlier, on Tuesday, as Steve Haddad was alone for a game. It is not as easy as you think it is to make sure that guys get their 2 feet in, to make sure that guys aren't offside. There's a lot that they have to kind of worry about here. So shout out to the refs for all that they do. And that will do it for us here, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Catch you guys next week.